Hi, it's Ed, and I welcome you to Global TV Talk Show again. I want to introduce our sponsors. Global TV Talk Show is co-sponsored by Porchlight Rental and Destination Services. That's porchlightrental.com, porchlightrental.com. Also by cubemonk.com. That's cubemonk.com. It's an innovation in also goods, packaging, freight forwarding, wonderful invention. And by the relocation management company, AIRS Relocation. That's AIRES, airs.com. Thank you for being a sponsor of Global TV Talk Show. Hi, this is Ed Cohen, your broadcast host on Global TV Talk Show. It's a service of globalbusinessnews.net. I'm coming to you today from San Diego, California, and our very special guest is a good friend. Chuck Brooks is in the Washington, D.C. area. He's an adjunct professor. He's a recognized, world-renowned tech expert on cybersecurity issues, and that's going to be our major theme today. Let's say hello and welcome to you, Chuck Brooks.
Thank you, Ed. It's a pleasure to be here and looking forward to an engaging conversation.
Okay, so Chuck, you have recently been honored again. I don't mean to embarrass you, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your latest accolades and why you think you're finally being recognized as the top leader that you are? I mean,
I think it's been a long time coming. I've been doing a lot of writing. I've written over 185 articles on cybersecurity and emerging technologies, and I've been teaching 2 courses at Georgetown University, one in applied intelligence and the other in cybersecurity. Actually, a third, blockchain too, and a fourth in emerging technologies, disruptive technologies. So, and that one I actually composed the course and wrote the curriculum. But also, I think it's just from a decade of working since I've left the Department of Homeland Security, doing dozens of speaking events, working in the industry, in General Dynamics Mission Systems, Xerox, others, and it has taken sort of notice, by places like Forbes and Homeland Security Today, and judging a lot of contests. I'm asked every week to judge a cybersecurity contest, including by the U.S. Army. So it's been pretty exciting.
So tell me about cybersecurity threats that are apparently coming fast and furious at us as a nation.
Sure. Well, it's been exacerbated since we've experienced COVID-19, as everything has been exacerbated as we're now communicating in our homes or home studios. What has happened is there's a sort of a confluence of events. One thing is that we're going to a digital economy much faster than we thought we would. There's a digital transformation sort of forced upon us. The second thing is that our adversaries have gotten more aggressive, particularly China and others, in terms of trying to steal IP and do other things. And third, that's now become sort of profitable for ransomware. Ransomware has become, in the last couple of years, it's been around for 15 years, but it's been very profitable kind of endeavor now because there's cryptocurrency and you can exchange it. But what I was starting with originally, the COVID-19 has basically forced a lot of people to work at home, and now they're working on basically an extended perimeter of networks, which is a much more larger attack space for adversaries. Plus, don't have the oversight of the security teams that work in the offices to be able to have visibility in systems. So there's a lot more risk and a lot more phishing attack, a lot more fraud, all kinds of different things.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that review. That is really fascinating and actually very scary. So this isn't well. Are we headed towards another black swan event with cyber threats on the grid, or is it just or was it just like Jesse James holding up the banks? They're coming at us and they want money and then they'll leave us alone. What is it?
Well, it could be a black swan event. There's a thing called distributed denial of attacks, which DDoS systems, and you could take down whole networks. And one of the fears, of course, is our critical infrastructure. You've seen recently a lot of global attacks on power plants, water systems, etc., by nation states. that could happen to us very easily too. We have antiquated equipment, some of it 50 years old, in a lot of our power grid, which is very susceptible to attack. And then the bigger risk really right now is supply chains, because hackers have found out that the easiest way in is usually through a combination of people connected to it, whether it be a vendor or whether it be a supplier or someone else, and the person you're going after may not even realize that they're vulnerable. So, and that's a particularly big problem with small businesses, because most of them are the largest part of this attack ecosystem, 43% of them, and because they're such easy, low-hanging fruit.
Okay, so this is not new news. This has been around a while. I remember you speaking about this at our meetings a few years ago, produced at the National Press Club in Washington. And so here we are today, and it seems like, well, nothing's been done. But in reality, things have been done. There's more surveillance, not on us necessarily, but on, watching out for attacks, cyber attacks, correct?
True. There has been a sea change, although it's still very difficult. The challenge is because they're for several reasons. But I think now most companies, particularly the C-suite, are recognizing that if they get taken down, it affects the bottom line, the revenues, their reputation. So they brought CISOs and others to the table, and now they're looking at ways to invest and protect themselves. But at the same time, there's been a huge shortage in actually qualified, skilled cyber people. Budgets are short. Healthcare is under attack, the industry, and they're the easiest to attack because they have a lot of disparate networks, and they don't spend a lot on security. They spend a lot of on equipment and products and services for their patients. So it's really, while we're improving and while we're getting better in risk management, looking at intelligence sharing through Cyber Intelligence Security Agency at DHS and others with critical infrastructure particularly, there's still so much opportunity for hackers and organized crime, whoever they may be, to take advantage of such a unprotected system, because the bottom line is the internet was not built for security, and it was built for sharing and collaboration. And it's very difficult, for most companies to be able to operate without being at risk.
Well, thank you very much for that, Chuck. Let's talk about not politics, it's all business, but it really doesn't, in my opinion, it really doesn't matter who wins the election in terms of the need for infrastructure rebuild and reskilling of the population into more tech things. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I definitely agree with that. There's an interesting thing here, and I guess you could say it isn't politics, because there used to be an Office of Technology Assessment in Congress, and they took it away years back. We're looking at they basically thought, oh, we know enough about technology, but that wasn't the case. The last decade has majorly transformed how we operate, and there's not enough knowledge in Congress at all on technology and where the direction, whether it be 5G, whether it be quantum computing, whether it be artificial intelligence and machine learning. These are all areas that are now impacting us, and we're not prepared, and they don't have the expertise in legislation. So I think both, whether you're at what party you're in, it doesn't really matter. I think it's really more of a priority for the American people and other countries too, to realize that we're in industry 4.0. We're in a new era, and we're all connected, and we're all facing the same threats. And unless we really catch up and look at this ecosystem and how to protect it and share information, cooperate, we're all in the same game. We're all in the same game.
Well, I would think that the impact of the virus economically and now politically is certainly setting the country up for more information about all this and the need for investment. And I don't know whether you call it a technology czar. Maybe you'd be interested in that job, but maybe not.
Well, there's been sort of roles in that, but really it is really I think it's inevitable that we're going to have to, because as we become an automated society, and as everything we do is remote, and depending how long this COVID thing lasts, or if it hopefully goes away next year or whatever, maybe sooner better. But we're all going to be in a new world where we're going to have smart cities. We're going to be interconnected, relying on data for everything we do, for analytics. We communicate already through our smartphones. That's our life. It's an extension of us. So unless we really put this as a top priority in government and in industry and make public-private partnerships the cornerstone of what we do in technology, we're going to have real challenges ahead.
Yeah. So without mentioning names, particularly without permission, back at the press club, National Press Club, when you spoke, you brought in the honorable leader, Mr. Salucci, but he was heavily involved in the public-private partnership idea, right?
Yeah, Tom is, Dr. Salucci he really was the author of a lot of the publications, both at the White House and at DHS under several presidents, both Republican and Democrat. And he's a leader in that. I think he's written 27 books. And he was ahead of his time in that. I mean, there's a lot of policy and sort of frameworks to follow. But in terms of everything we do now, whether it be financing a project or guaranteeing the compliance insurance, there's so much interaction now between government, state, local, and federal, and business that we have to really understand. In terms of global, of course, there's GDPR, the compliance for cybersecurity, which affects pretty much the whole world. So we're in the game together. Unless we follow the public-private partnership model and embolden it, we're going to be having trouble.
So what's involved with fixing up the grid? I don't know what else to call it. I'm not tech, but it seems like it would be a bonanza for some businesses, and yet it's a public-private partnership that's absolutely necessary. Never mind rebuild of roads and rail systems and the internet for broadband. But give us an insight about the process of the technology. I would think it's already in existence. It's just not being applied. Is that correct?
Well, it's in existence, but it's not so easy to apply. Like I said earlier, a lot of the foundation of the grid was built 30, 40, 50 years ago. You're dealing with a lot of different disparate operating systems. You're dealing with an IT infrastructure, and you're dealing with what's called SCADA, which is industrial type cybersecurity requirements. So it's very difficult to coordinate all that at the same time to try and deal with the new technologies coming online. And machine learning is now being used as trying to do that, to basically to identify threats, to react to threats, and also automate a lot of the responses that we don't have the right enough people to do through it. And it's not just the cyber threat to the grid. I think there's a threat from electromagnetic pulses, EMP, as it's called. It could be from a solar flare. And we're so dependent on this infrastructure. And something happened like it happened, which was called the Carrington event in the 1900s, where it would have wiped out all the electricity. It could happen again. So I think we need to harden our grid too. And I think that there is a presidential order that was done last year that requires that the industry work to harden the grid and protect it, because it also has a tactical threat against a bomb or something detonated to wipe out electrical functions, where we'd all be sent back in the Stone Age. So there's a lot of challenges when it comes to both cyber and physical, and they're interconnected in terms of protecting the grid.
So in order for the population, there's so many people unemployed right now as a result of the pandemic and the fear multiplied so quick, so fast. The technology aspects, people need to learn more about technology. And, for me, I'm not a techie. I'm more of a high concept person and, a communicator. But you're a tech and a big time. So how do people who aren't naturally suited for technology learning, like me, how do we learn about tech?
Well, the good thing about the digital era is there's a lot of resources available for free. You could go now to most of the large universities and get online courses. A lot of them you don't have to pay for. We'll train you in that. And there's also a lot of organizations that provide these sort of certificate programs and basic understandings. And the third part, I'd say, is the second part, is really the social media. Social media now is a resource. There's so much posted every day, particularly I use LinkedIn primarily, but others too. That you really can go to a group or find out anything you want on any kind of technology. And then there's a lot of associated type organizations that come out of those groups where you can join them and be part of the technology flow. But I think in terms of what you just said, it really is more than just being an engineer or knowing the technical aspects of technology. It's how you apply it, what fuses, what technological fusion of other technologies go together. And that implies more soft thinking, soft learning, where you have leadership skills, you have communication skills, you have ability to analyze. So it's not just being an engineer and knowing the tech, it's really knowing how it fits into the system and how you can better it and improve it, the ergonomics of it, the impact of it on society, and also the socioeconomic impacts of it too.
So let me ask you a little bit different question, but related to tech. So do you have a robot? I mean, other than Siri, do you have a robot in your house in your office to help you do things?
No, I actually, I pretty much do everything myself. I'm just that kind of person. But a lot of people I deal with do have like the whole setup, with everything's automated in their house, from the cameras to their ovens to the refrigerators, the Nest, they have Nest. But I figured also it's a higher cybersecurity risk when you do that. It gives just more entry points for hackers. So I try and do everything simple. Sometimes complexity is the enemy of security.
So I remember the olden days, because I'm really old. I remember the olden days, the early TV shows about futuristic stuff, and there's somebody waving their hand and the lights went on, or the oven started or something. I guess that's current, isn't it?
Everything yeah, it is current, and robots are making great gains too. They don't have the sentient capabilities of a human, but 2001 HAL perspective, where they can think and reason and also have emotional feelings. But they're advancing very quickly, and we don't have flying cars yet like the Jetsons, but we're getting there pretty close too.
I was going to bring up the Jetsons, so thank you for doing that. Okay, so I want to say that our talk show is co-sponsored by a couple of companies, and so a little bit of a plug for them. First of all, is Porchlight Rental and Destination Services. They help people settle in. And Cube Monk, which is a high-tech moving system, cubemonk.com. It's brand new innovation. And also a relocation company called Airs, AIRES, airs.com. I'm grateful to have them enable me to do these shows. And Chuck, thank you. So tell me about your, one of your projects right now. Just pick one, and about who's the customer, and I don't want to know secrets, but what is the purpose of the project? To help me and my audience tune into the super skills that you have. Not to embarrass you here, but the application is really critical to gather more understanding.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you a couple of them. Actually, I'm working with a private satellite company. It's actually putting stuff up in orbit very soon. And part of the challenge there, of course, is cybersecurity and cybersecurity of all the data they get. It's going to be a commercial venture. It's very exciting because really having a security element built in up front is really important. Also working with a small company called PCI Tech, which is a hub-zone, woman-owned small business that's been almost around for 30 years. And they've been primarily a reseller of hardware and software to the government. And I'm helping them set up a cybersecurity practice because obviously there's a need for required capabilities and technologies and hardware, both in software. And they have the relationships and the experience in the team to do it. So it's been a lot of fun working with them. And I think my most exciting project, which I alluded to earlier, is that I actually designed a course for Georgetown University on disruptive technologies and organizational management. And just doing the syllabus and the curriculum and writing the whole program and the modules took months, but it was really fulfilling. So I think anytime you can share yourself and knowledge with and educating others and helping them is the most rewarding thing.
Boy, that's fascinating. That's really fascinating. So who would be your students for a course like that?
Oh, it's a mix. It's a graduate level course. So you have a lot of people and now there's two versions. There was where I was teaching on campus, but we don't have that right now for obvious reasons. So it's now all remote. But it also opens up to people all over the world. Then you have digital, but we have mostly people who are actually employed. A lot of them in the government, a lot of them working at agencies who want to basically have a better understanding of technology and cybersecurity. And the course is geared around that. So there are a lot of people also on the GI Bill, which is really exciting to see people using their money to better their education. I think what we're finding out now is that advanced education is almost required in this environment, and they're able to basically take what their interests are and help plan their career path with it. So it's really that too is fulfilling, and helping them along that is really great to do.
Great, thank you very much for sharing that. So now, if we could zero in on what's coming up, say 6 months from now, just crystal ball, if you will. 6 months from now, we're going to have an election. We're going to be in the new year, and hopefully we'll all be healthier and employed. And so, God willing. So let's talk about how you would advise companies, smaller companies, to implement technology and to get people reskilled and upskilled.
Yeah. Well, I think it all starts with the company. Every company is different, but you have to have a strategy and a framework for what you want to do. What are your goals? What are your products? What are your services? And then once you have that strategy, you've got to build in a security framework, how to protect all elements and operations of your company. And that starts with risk management. So you would basically look at where you're going to budget, where you're going to look at your vulnerabilities, where your gaps are. Then you're going to look at what kind of software or hardware you need to implement, what you need to patch, or whether you want to hire someone for managed service. You're talking about small businesses. A lot of them don't have the budgets or the expertise to do things themselves. So that might be a capability. And then the basic thing too for also looking for skilled work is that you need to retrain your workforce now, because most of them, even if we get back to normal, I think a third of the force is still going to be acting remote, because I think it's in some ways it's more efficient. So a lot of companies are going to keep a remote workforce, and you have to train them in cyber hygiene. You have to train them how to basically patch and update, to know how not to hook on a phishing attack, which is still the most predominant way of corrupting or breaching a system. And so I think all those things are very doable. And I think a lot of it is also goes back to learning and sharing and gaining information from the public resources, including government, including DHS, and including all these others that make it available how to implement frameworks and protect yourself and work to have a fortified capability. And then you could actually go about doing your business what you really want to do.
So you're talking about like a Sesame Street approach to something highly technical, the words that you just threw around like patch, and I forget what else you just said, right over my head, but so it didn't stick. So, I would think like a Sesame Street approach to understanding patch and understanding the skills necessary to implement technology. And there's an element of trust there, that's for sure, especially with remote working. Wouldn't you agree that there has to be a lot of communication and there has to be a lot of trust?
There has to be absolutely digital communication now. And what patching is basically that they find vulnerabilities in usually in the operating software. And companies like Microsoft are continually updating and sending patches, usually to administrators to implement them. But your basic cyber hygiene and understanding what you need to do using a secure VPN or a router or Wi-Fi, things that you know where the risks are, is something you can learn yourself. You don't need to go to a course for that. And just keeping the proper hygiene of keeping your work devices separate from your private devices, knowing which websites not to click on, and keeping an up-to-date antivirus package on your computer are things everyone could do. So I think small businesses particularly have sort of just been negligent in those areas with their employees, and now I think they're sort of reconsidering the new environments.
Well, thanks very much for being our guest on Global TV Talk Show, Chuck Brooks. How can people get in touch with you? I assume LinkedIn is easy, huh, Chuck Brooks?
Yeah, LinkedIn's easiest. way. I have almost 62,000 followers on LinkedIn. Just go to Chuck Brooks and follow me there, or on Twitter at Chuck D Brooks. I also active on Twitter, although it's a different kind of social media. So those two are the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Great. Thanks very much again, Chuck Brooks. Happy 4th of July weekend to you, and stay safe.
Same to you, Ed. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, this is Ed signing off from San Diego, and that's Chuck Brooks in Washington, D.C. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.